The evidence is right there on the screen, clear as day.
You cannot stress claims.
I swear, I didn't take anything.
Silence! Save your lies for the police.
The moment you decide someone is guilty without proof, you do not reveal their character. You reveal your own. Rain pressed against the towering windows of the Volkov estate, turning the Chicago skyline into a blur of silver lights and dark clouds. Inside the historic mansion, employees finished another long evening beneath crystal chandeliers and polished marble arches. The estate served as both the private residence and executive headquarters of Adrian Volkov, a Russian-American business leader known throughout the city for discipline, precision, and an almost unforgiving respect for order. Near the entrance hall, Jasmine Brooks quietly removed the name badge from her housekeeping uniform. She placed it inside a plain cardboard box containing a framed photograph of her late grandmother, a worn library novel, a pair of gardening gloves, and a neatly folded resignation letter addressed to Human Resources. Jasmine had worked at the estate for nearly 4 years. She arrived before sunrise, stayed late whenever another employee needed help, and treated executives, delivery drivers, and temporary workers with the same calm respect. Yet over the previous 5 days, something had changed. A priceless Volkov family necklace had disappeared during a charity reception. The antique sapphire piece had belonged to Adrian's mother and had been displayed inside a private reception room for a small group of donors. By the end of the evening, it was gone. No one directly accused Jasmine, but she had been assigned to clean the display room after the guests departed. Since then, conversations stopped when she entered. Lunch invitations disappeared. Co-workers who once laughed with her now offered nervous smiles before looking away. That evening, Jasmine carried her box toward the front doors. Linda Harris, the head housekeeper, followed her into the entrance hall. "You cannot leave because of whispers," Linda pleaded. "You have earned your place here." Jasmine offered a tired but gentle smile. "A place where people know my work, but still question my character was never as secure as I believed." Before Linda could answer, Adrian entered the hall. He had been reviewing security reports in his office when a supervisor informed him that Jasmine was resigning. He stepped between her and the oak doors, his expression controlled but visibly unsettled. "Are you leaving because you took the necklace?" he asked. Several nearby employees froze. Jasmine met his eyes. "No, then why resign?" "Because innocence should not require me to beg people who already know me to remember who I am." Adrian glanced at the cardboard box. "You are willing to let suspicion follow you? I cannot control what people choose to believe." She removed the resignation letter and held it toward him. Before Adrian could take it, the estate security manager hurried into the hall carrying a tablet. "We found something," he said. On the screen was a still image from the night of the reception. It showed Jasmine standing near the private display room at 10:47 p.m. In her hand was a small velvet jewelry case. A murmur moved through the entrance hall. Jasmine looked at the image but did not react. Adrian studied her face. "What was in that case?" Jasmine slowly lowered her resignation letter. "That," she answered, "is the question you should have asked before allowing everyone to decide the answer." The image spread through the estate before the rain stopped falling. Although Adrian ordered the security team to keep the investigation confidential, several employees had already seen the tablet in the entrance hall. By the following morning, Jasmine's photograph had become the center of every whispered conversation. She returned to work before sunrise. No one had expected her to come back. Adrian had refused to accept her resignation and asked her to remain for 24 hours while he reviewed the newly discovered evidence. Jasmine agreed, not because she believed the estate deserved another chance, but because Linda had quietly reminded her that leaving immediately might allow the false story to become permanent. The velvet case in the photograph appeared almost identical to the one that had held the missing necklace. The security report showed that Jasmine's access badge had opened the private display room at 10:43 p.m. 4 minutes later, she was recorded leaving with the case in her hand. No camera captured where she went next because the service hallway had been temporarily blocked by floral equipment from the reception. The evidence looked simple. Too simple. Adrian spent the morning reviewing Jasmine's employment history. There were no disciplinary complaints, unexplained absences, or reports of missing property. For years earlier, she had returned an envelope containing nearly $2,000 after a fundraising dinner. Guests had written letters praising her honesty. She had declined 2 promotions so employees supporting larger families could receive higher salaries. Records did not prove innocence, but they made the accusation difficult to accept. Adrian called Jasmine into his office. She stood across from his desk with her hands calmly folded. "Tell me what was inside the case," he said. "Pearl earrings belonging to Mrs. Caldwell." Adrian recognized the name of an elderly donor who had attended the reception. "Why were you carrying them?" "She left them beside the powder room sink. I placed them in an empty jewelry case so they would not be damaged and delivered them to the guest services desk. There is no record of that delivery. I gave the case to Mr. Hale." Marcus Hale was the estate's operations manager. He supervised event logistics and had worked for Adrian for 11 years. Adrian pressed the intercom and summoned him. Marcus arrived several minutes later wearing a perfectly tailored gray suit. When asked about the jewelry case, he hesitated only briefly. "I do not remember receiving it," he said. Jasmine looked at him. Marcus avoided her eyes. Adrian noticed. "You either received the case or you did not," Adrian said. "I handled dozens of guest items that evening. It is possible, but I cannot confirm it." After Marcus left, Adrian turned back to Jasmine. "Why did you not mention him last night?" "Because I hoped he would remember the truth without being forced. You are protecting someone who may be allowing you to take the blame. I am giving him the opportunity to decide what kind of man he wants to be." Adrian leaned forward. "And what happens if he chooses silence?" Jasmine looked toward the rain-darkened window. "Then his silence will answer the question for him." That afternoon, Adrian received a call from a member of the Volkov Family Foundation. A local gossip website had learned that an employee was being investigated for stealing the necklace. The foundation's board demanded a public statement before the story reached major news outlets. Adrian now had 6 hours to decide whether to suspend Jasmine publicly or risk damage to the family's reputation. For the first time, he understood that discovering the truth would not be enough. He would have to decide whether fairness was worth defending before the truth made fairness convenient. At noon, Adrian's legal advisor recommended immediate suspension. "The photograph, the badge record, and the missing delivery report are enough to justify temporary action," she said. "You do not have to accuse her. You only need to protect the estate." Adrian looked through the conference room windows toward the courtyard below. Jasmine was helping a new housekeeper repair a torn uniform sleeve. The younger woman appeared close to tears, but Jasmine spoke to her patiently until embarrassment gave way to relief. Adrian had spent years measuring leadership through speed. Problems were identified, decisions were made, and uncertainty was removed. Yet suspending Jasmine would not remove uncertainty. It would simply place its consequences on the person with the least power to resist them. He declined the recommendation. "No public suspension," he said. "She will be reassigned temporarily while we investigate." The legal advisor frowned. "The board may interpret that as weakness. Then the board will have to learn the difference between weakness and restraint." Adrian ordered a complete review of surveillance footage, staff schedules, guest records, and access logs from the charity reception. He also instructed security to determine how information about the investigation had reached the media. Meanwhile, Jasmine was moved away from guest areas and assigned to inventory work in the basement storage wing. The reassignment prevented reporters or visiting donors from seeing her, but to the employees, it looked like punishment. By mid-afternoon, even longtime co-workers avoided her. Only Linda continued sitting beside Jasmine during lunch. "You should tell Adrian everything," Linda whispered. "I told him what happened. You have not told him why Marcus refused to confirm it." Jasmine's expression changed. 3 nights earlier, after the necklace disappeared, Marcus had approached her near the service entrance. He admitted finding the sapphire necklace beneath a tablecloth in the display room. Instead of reporting it, he had placed it in his pocket. He claimed he had not planned to steal it. His wife's medical bills had left him overwhelmed. His home was close to foreclosure, and he had convinced himself that selling the necklace could solve everything. But the moment he carried it away, fear and shame began consuming him. Jasmine had told him to return it before morning. She had believed he would. Instead, Marcus returned only the pearl earrings and remained silent about the necklace. "Why protect him now?" Linda asked. "I am not protecting what he did. You are protecting him from consequences." "No," Jasmine replied. "I am protecting his chance to face those consequences honestly." Before Linda could respond, Adrian entered the dining room. He had heard only the final sentence. Who are you talking about? He asked. Jasmine stood. Her silence told him there was more to the story. Adrian stepped closer. You are asking me to risk the reputation of my family, this estate, and every employee here. I need the truth. I have told you the part that belongs to me, and the rest belongs to the person who must choose whether to tell it. Adrian's patience finally cracked. Someone is using your silence against you. I know. You could lose your job. I know. You could leave this city with your name attached to a crime you did not commit. Jasmine met his frustration with quiet steadiness. Then perhaps the most important question is not whether I can survive a false accusation. It is whether the people who know the truth can survive what they become by remaining silent. That evening, Adrian received another security report. The leak to the gossip website had come from inside the estate. The account used to send the anonymous message belonged to Jasmine. The new evidence seemed impossible to explain. The anonymous email had been sent from Jasmine's staff account at 11:18 p.m. on the night of the charity reception. It contained 3 facts that had not been made public. The necklace was missing, Jasmine had entered the display room, and management suspected an employee. The message had not reached the website until several days later because it had been scheduled for delayed delivery. Adrian stared at the report. If Jasmine had stolen the necklace, sending the tip made little sense. If she was innocent, it made even less. He called her into the conference room. Security manager Ethan Cooper waited beside a monitor displaying the email records. Linda stood near the door, clearly worried. Adrian showed Jasmine the account activity. Did you send this? No, the message came from your login. I did not write it. Who knows your password? No one. Ethan interrupted. The login occurred from a terminal inside the operations office. Marcus Hale's office. Adrian immediately ordered Marcus brought to the conference room, but the operations manager had left the estate 30 minutes earlier without signing out. His phone went directly to voicemail. The board called again. The gossip website planned to publish the story at 6 o'clock. Unless the Volkov Foundation released a statement first, the article would identify Jasmine by name and include the surveillance photograph. Adrian had less than 2 hours. His advisors urged him to distance the estate from Jasmine. Instead, Adrian called the website's editor personally. You will not publish the employee's identity, he said. We have authenticated records. You have incomplete records from an active internal investigation. Are you threatening legal action? I am informing you that the most powerful person involved in this situation is not the employee whose photograph you intend to publish. It is me. If anyone's name belongs in your article before the investigation ends, use mine. The editor delayed publication for 12 hours. It was not enough to solve the case, but it protected Jasmine for one night. Adrian then joined Ethan in the security office and personally reviewed the operations wing footage. At 11:10 p.m. on the night of the reception, Marcus entered his office carrying a folder. 8 minutes later, he left through a side corridor. The camera could not show what he did at the computer. A second recording revealed Jasmine approaching the office shortly afterward. She stopped outside the door, noticed something on the floor, and picked it up. It was Marcus's employee access card. That explained how someone could enter the operations office while making the system record Marcus's badge, but it did not explain the use of Jasmine's password. Ethan enlarged another frame. On Marcus's desk was a small notebook opened beside the computer. Adrian remembered seeing Jasmine use a blue notebook to record housekeeping assignments. He also remembered that employees sometimes wrote temporary passwords on the final page before changing them. Someone had copied her login. The investigation was no longer about one stolen necklace. Someone had deliberately created evidence against Jasmine. Adrian returned to the basement storage wing, where she was finishing the inventory list alone. Marcus used your account, he said. Jasmine closed the notebook in her hand. I believed he might. You knew? I noticed my notebook had been moved after the reception. And you said nothing? I had no proof. He is framing you. Her voice became quieter. He is frightened. Adrian could no longer hide his anger. Fear does not excuse destroying another person. No, Jasmine said. But anger will not restore what fear has already damaged. Adrian placed both hands on the inventory table. Where would he go? For the first time, Jasmine hesitated. Then she gave him an address. It belonged to a small church-supported financial counseling center on Chicago's South Side. If he has any courage left, she said, that is where he will be. Adrian arrived at the counseling center shortly before sunset. He had not brought lawyers, security officers, or members of the executive team. Only Ethan accompanied him, waiting in the car across the street. Inside the modest building, Adrian found Marcus sitting alone in a small meeting room. His suit jacket was folded across a chair, his tie had been loosened, and the confident operations manager appeared suddenly older than his 48 years. A sealed velvet case rested on the table. Adrian closed the door behind him. "You had 12 years to earn my trust," he said. "It took you less than 12 minutes to place the consequences of your actions on Jasmine." Marcus lowered his head. "I never intended for it to go this far." "You took the necklace." "Yes." "You used her account to leak the investigation." Marcus's voice shook. "I thought if the estate believed she had leaked the story, everyone would stop looking at me. You created evidence that could destroy her career." I panicked. Adrian looked at the velvet case. "Why did Jasmine know where to find you?" Marcus wiped his face with both hands. "My wife was treated at the clinic connected to this center. Jasmine volunteered here on weekends. She was the one who told me they could help with our debt." On the night of the reception, Marcus had found the necklace after it slipped beneath a display table. He placed it in his pocket, intending only to keep it long enough to think. Jasmine saw part of the chain near the service entrance and confronted him privately. She did not threaten him. She told him to return it before sunrise and offered to accompany him to Human Resources. Marcus agreed. But during the night, he imagined losing his position, his home, and the respect of his family. By morning, shame had become fear. When he learned Jasmine was already being quietly suspected, he allowed the assumption to grow. Then he created the anonymous email. "I thought she would defend herself," Marcus said. "I thought she would tell everyone what she saw. She gave you the chance to tell the truth. And I used her silence to protect myself." Adrian sat across from him. For years, he would have handled the situation in a single decisive motion: termination, legal action, public distance. But Jasmine's example had forced him to confront a harder question. Could accountability exist without humiliation? "You will return to the estate tonight," Adrian said. "You will confess to Human Resources and the security team. You will accept the disciplinary consequences." Marcus nodded. "And Jasmine? You will not ask her forgiveness until you have repaired what you can." Marcus looked toward the velvet case. "I do not deserve another opportunity. That is not for you to decide. Your responsibility is to stop using shame as another reason to avoid the truth." Back at the estate, Jasmine waited in the empty employee dining room with Linda. At 8:15 p.m., Adrian entered carrying the recovered necklace. Behind him walked Marcus. Several executives and security officers gathered in the conference room. Marcus confessed to taking the necklace, manipulating Jasmine's account, and remaining silent while suspicion spread. The truth had finally arrived. But the relief Jasmine expected did not come. The gossip website had already published a short update claiming the estate's investigation had uncovered conflicting employee testimony. Her name was not included, but the surveillance image was. Within minutes, strangers began identifying her through social media. Even after the necklace was recovered, Jasmine's face was becoming connected to the accusation. Adrian looked at the screen and realized that proving her innocence privately would no longer be enough. He had allowed suspicion to grow in silence. Now he would have to correct it publicly. By morning, the story had spread beyond the gossip website. Online comments accused the estate of covering up theft. Others claimed Jasmine had returned the necklace only after being caught. The surveillance image appeared without context, showing her carrying the velvet case through the hallway. The truth was more complicated than the photograph, but the photograph traveled faster. Adrian's public relations team prepared a carefully worded statement. It confirmed that the necklace had been recovered and that an employee had accepted responsibility. It did not identify Marcus or Jasmine. Jasmine read the draft once. "This will protect the estate," she said. "That is what it is supposed to do," the communications director replied. "It will not protect the person the public already believes is guilty." Adrian looked at the document. She was right. The statement used passive language, avoided responsibility, and treated the damage to Jasmine as an unfortunate misunderstanding rather than the result of institutional failure. Adrian tore it in half. He recorded a video statement from the estate library. "My name is Adrian Volkov," he began. "A photograph connected an innocent employee to the disappearance of a family heirloom. That photograph was incomplete, and the conclusions drawn from it were false. Jasmine Brooks did not take the necklace. She cooperated with the investigation and acted with greater integrity than many of the people responsible for protecting her, including me. His advisors warned him not to continue. He did. As the leader of this estate, I allowed an employee without evidence of wrongdoing to carry the burden of suspicion. The necklace has been recovered. The responsible person has confessed. Jasmine's name must not remain attached to an accusation she did not deserve. The statement spread rapidly. Many comments changed. Some people apologized. Others questioned why Jasmine had remained silent after witnessing Marcus with the necklace. Reporters began gathering outside the estate. Jasmine refused interview requests. "I do not want my dignity turned into entertainment," she told Adrian. He respected her decision. Marcus was dismissed from his management position. Company policy required termination because he had stolen property and manipulated records. However, Adrian arranged financial counseling, legal guidance, and career transition support. Marcus did not receive protection from consequences. He received protection from being permanently reduced to his worst decision. Inside the estate, Adrian introduced new investigation procedures. Evidence would be verified before employees were reassigned. Anonymous reporting systems would be created. Every accused employee would be informed of the allegations and allowed to respond. Managers would receive training on bias, fairness, and the dangers of rumor. Still, Jasmine kept her resignation letter. One evening, Adrian found her tending the flowers near the memorial bench dedicated to his mother. "The truth is public now," he said. "Yes, your name has been cleared. For many people, you are still thinking about leaving." She removed a faded leaf from a rose bush. The necklace was returned, but the deeper problem was never the necklace. What was it? People who had known me for 4 years needed only 4 days to imagine the worst. Adrian had no defense. Jasmine continued. "You corrected the public story. You changed the policies. But policies cannot tell me whether people here truly learned anything." What would? Time. For Adrian, every business problem had once been measured in hours, reports, and decisions. Now the most important outcome depended on something he could not command. He had to prove that the estate's change would last even after attention moved elsewhere. 1 week later, Adrian called every estate employee into the grand ballroom. Housekeepers, chefs, gardeners, security officers, office administrators, and senior executives filled the room. Jasmine chose a seat near the back beside Linda. Adrian stood at the front without slides, financial reports, or prepared applause lines. "This meeting is about responsibility," he said, beginning with mine. He explained that the investigation had concluded and that Jasmine had been innocent from the beginning. He did not reveal Marcus's personal financial circumstances, but he confirmed that another employee had confessed and accepted the consequences. Then Adrian addressed the part no official report could measure. "Many people in this room never accused Jasmine directly," he said. "But silence, avoidance, and whispered assumptions created a punishment before any facts were established. I allowed that atmosphere to continue because I was focused on recovering property instead of protecting a person." Several employees lowered their eyes. Adrian asked Jasmine to join him at the front. She hesitated before standing. When she reached the platform, Adrian faced her. "I owe you an apology, not only because you were suspected, but because I failed to make fairness visible when you needed it most." He removed her folded resignation. "Letter from a folder. I will not tear this up," he said. "It belongs to you. Staying must be your choice, not another decision made by someone with more authority." He handed it back. The gesture surprised Jasmine more than a dramatic refusal would have. Adrian continued. "This estate would lose far more than an employee if you left. But respect means allowing you to decide whether our change deserves your trust." There was no immediate applause. Instead, Linda stood. "I am sorry," she said. "I defended you privately, but I should have spoken more clearly when the whispers began." A young housekeeper named Emily stood next. "You helped me when I was afraid of making mistakes. I avoided you when you needed someone beside you. I am sorry." One by one, employees acknowledged what they had done or failed to do. Some had repeated rumors. Others had looked away. A few admitted they had believed the photograph because questioning it required courage they had not shown. The apologies were uncomfortable, imperfect, and sincere. Jasmine looked across the room. "I do not expect perfect people," she said. I only hope we become people who pause before turning uncertainty into judgment. She unfolded the resignation letter. For several seconds, the ballroom remained silent. Then Jasmine tore the letter once down the center. I will stay for 90 days, she said. Not because everything is repaired, but because repair deserves the chance to begin. The room did not erupt into celebration. People simply nodded, understanding that trust had not been restored in a single speech. It had been given a probation period. That evening, Adrian asked Linda to help create an employee council with representatives from every department. Jasmine declined the offer to lead it. Why? Adrian asked. Because real change should not depend on the person who was harmed doing all the work. Adrian accepted the correction. For the first time, he was learning that good leadership was not proven by delivering the right speech. It was proven by what happened after no one was listening. During the following 3 months, the Volkov estate changed slowly. Managers attended fairness and ethics training. Employees learned how to report concerns without fear of retaliation. Investigations required documented evidence, and no one could be reassigned or suspended without being told exactly why. Yet policies did not immediately change habits. The real test came when several $1,000s disappeared from a locked charity collection box after another estate event. The discovery created instant tension. A temporary catering worker named Caleb had been seen near the office where the box was stored. He had worked at the estate for only 2 days, and no one knew him well. Some supervisors recommended removing him before the morning shift ended. Adrian refused. No decision until the evidence is complete. Caleb was interviewed privately, informed of the exact concern, and allowed to explain that he had entered the office after being instructed to deliver event invoices. Security footage confirmed his explanation. The missing money was later discovered inside a sealed accounting envelope that had been moved to the wrong safe. No theft had occurred. The estate had nearly repeated the same mistake, but this time the process stopped suspicion from becoming punishment. Jasmine watched quietly as Caleb returned to work. Later, he thanked her, believing she had personally intervened. I did not, she said. The system worked the way it should have. That answer mattered to her. Change no longer depended on Adrian's guilt or Jasmine's presence. It had begun becoming part of the culture. Still, one challenge remained. An executive director named Richard Lawson openly questioned the new policies. He complained that investigations had become slow and that managers were losing authority. During a leadership meeting, he referred to Jasmine's case as an emotional exception that should not control business decisions. Jasmine was not present, but Adrian was. In the past, Adrian might have ended the discussion by using his position. Instead, he asked Richard a question. If Caleb had been removed today and the money had later been found, who would have repaired his reputation? Richard said nothing. Efficiency that places all risk on the least powerful person is not leadership, Adrian continued. It is convenience. Richard eventually resigned from the employee council but remained in his executive role under clear performance expectations. The decision was not dramatic. It was consistent. At the end of Jasmine's 90-day period, Adrian invited her to the memorial garden. Have we earned your trust? He asked. Some of it. He smiled. That sounds like progress. It is. Adrian offered her a newly created position as employee development supervisor. Jasmine initially declined. I do not want this to look like compensation for what happened. It is not compensation, Adrian said. It is responsibility. You understand the difference between correcting people and humiliating them better than anyone I know. Jasmine considered the offer for several days. Then she accepted under one condition. Every new supervisor, including senior executives, would participate in the same training program. No exemptions based on title, she said. Adrian agreed. On her first day in the new role, Jasmine placed her old housekeeping badge beside her grandmother's photograph. She did not hide it. It reminded her that leadership could begin in any uniform. 1 year later, the Volkov estate was known for more than its historic architecture, influential guests, and successful business operations. It had become known as a workplace where every employee was expected to receive fairness before judgment. New workers attended orientation sessions led by Jasmine Brooks. She learned their names, listened to their concerns, and reminded supervisors that correcting someone with patience built stronger teams than embarrassing them with authority. Adrian attended those sessions as well. He did not stand at the front. He sat with the managers, One afternoon, a young housekeeping assistant accidentally dropped a tray of polished silver serving pieces in the main corridor. The crash echoed through the marble hall, and the employee froze, expecting anger. Instead, several coworkers calmly helped her gather the pieces. A supervisor checked that she was not hurt before discussing how to prevent the mistake from happening again. No policy manual told them exactly how to react. They had learned by watching one another. From the library doorway, Adrian observed the scene. Jasmine stood nearby, but did not intervene. She did not need to. The culture was beginning to carry itself. Later that evening, Adrian walked through the memorial garden. The flowers surrounding his mother's stone bench were in full bloom. Jasmine was finishing the watering when he arrived. "You changed this place," he said. Jasmine shook her head. People changed themselves. They needed someone to show them how. They needed someone to believe they were capable of learning. Adrian sat on the bench. For most of his life, he had believed authority meant controlling outcomes. Recover the necklace. Identify the responsible person. Protect the institution. Remove uncertainty. Jasmine had taught him that the most important responsibility of leadership was not protecting an organization from embarrassment. It was protecting human dignity while the truth was still incomplete. "Do you ever regret staying?" he asked. Jasmine looked across the estate grounds, where employees were leaving after another ordinary day. "No," she said, "but I am glad you returned the resignation letter to me." "Why?" "Because staying only mattered if I was free to leave." Adrian nodded. Trust demanded choice. Without choice, loyalty was only obedience wearing a kinder name. As Jasmine prepared to leave, she paused beside the memorial bench and straightened a small bouquet of flowers. Adrian remembered the night he first saw her tending the same garden while suspicion moved through the estate. At the time, he had been searching through reports, camera footage, and access records for proof of who she was. The proof had been in front of him for years. It existed in the way she treated frightened employees, grieving coworkers, strangers carrying heavy boxes, and even the man whose silence had nearly destroyed her reputation. The missing necklace had eventually been recovered. The greater loss had been trust, recovering that had taken longer. It required apologies without excuses, consequences without cruelty, policies supported by daily choices, and leaders willing to admit that. Authority did not make them immune to error. As evening light settled over the Volkov estate, the building stood as a reminder that wealth could create beautiful rooms, power could command attention, and reputation could impress the world. But only character could make people feel safe inside those walls. And the deepest lesson Adrian ever learned had not come from a boardroom, a legal advisor, or a security report. It came from a black housekeeper who refused to let another person's suspicion decide her worth, and who showed an entire community that real authority is not proven by the power to judge. It is proven by the wisdom to protect someone's dignity until the truth finally finds its voice.